Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, our inaugural midnight edition, first ever with Steve McAuley, CEO and Power Clinics, trades on the CSC under CBDT for our friends in the US, EPWCF, and for our friends in Europe on Frankfurt under 8EC. Usually I do the long intro here, but this is our midnight one. It's all shareholders who know what's going on with the company and a bunch of new eyes. The headline is Empire Clinics announces COVID-19 referral agreement with major Canadian Airline, who will now refer its passengers to Kai Care for expedited COVID-19 testing. Steve, welcome.
Hey, George, thank you. That sounded like a mouthful. We spent a lot of time working on, what that should look like, how that should read, but it's exciting for us. We've been working on so many major projects behind the scenes. Doing deals and working on business development, is difficult. We can't always control the timing of when, these great partners come along, these big brands, come along to the table. But when they do, it's exciting, and we should talk about it and we should share it.
And exciting enough to be up at midnight for me, West Coast for you, but nonetheless up late. And by the way, and I'm going to get to the press release in a second, but in our last Q&A part one, we talked about the fact that some shareholders have lost a little bit of faith strictly based on stock ticker action. But does this drive the point home that, hey, you guys are in fact working really hard behind the scenes, talking to major brands and getting things done?
George, I hope that it does. I don't need validation for the work that we do. I know that the team are working so exceptionally hard in so many ways on so many projects. It's nice to, obviously get, contracts signed with important brands. And in this particular case, it's a very important brand to Canada and to, I think the, over 200 destinations and countries around the world, that this brand serves. And so we continue, no matter what's going on in capital markets, highs, lows, it does not matter to us. We work hard every day. Everybody frontline, administration, doctors, admins, it doesn't matter what role you may have in our organization.
You, right? Because you're the closer, right?
I'm not the only closer, but I certainly, I've been in this particular spot since 5:30 this morning. And because, it's been a very important day for us, a lot has taken place, and there's a lot of technicalities that need to be considered with securities commissions, with IROC, with, the big brands that you're working with to have a coordinated, approved approach to whatever we announce.
All right. And based on that, let's get to what you announced. Let's address the elephant in the room. I got to ask because you can fear the shareholders telling me, George, better ask him. Who is the major Canadian airline?
Well, in Canada as a Canadian, we have two, major airlines, and, whether it's AC or WJ, we've spent a lot of time with AC, and we're really, really enjoy working with them. And, we're looking forward to what we're doing going forward here with WJ. I've got some important meetings with them tomorrow, and,
Wow.
It's just, they're both great groups to work with. We're working closely with Star Alliance, generally speaking, and, AC and Lufthansa, United, are founding members of Star Alliance. And, our airline consultants that we work with who are helping us, navigate some of the work. We understand that these big important brands, they do tend to work together. And we've been working very hard behind the scenes with all of these organizations. And I think that, we have a little bit of validation here going into the additional discussions that we've had. And I've had multiple discussions, with these big brands. But keep in mind that earning the respect of big brands, making sure or gaining credibility with them, just to be at the table in conversations with such important brands is not an easy feat to get to.
No.
Never mind getting to a contract. So as an example, I spent a good part of the last 2 weeks navigating the contracts. Now, a big brand, like a brand like AC as an example, you've got to deal with their legal, their tax, their marketing people, their chief medical officer. There's a lot of constituents need to sign off on a relationship that we're moving forward with. And, we're grateful beyond belief. And, I signed the agreement on Friday, just passed. Counter signature came in Monday, as I announced in the announcement of today. So the counter signature came in, May 10th. And so by rule, we're required to, announce or disclose, a material contract by the next business day pre-market. And if we can't get it out by pre-market, then we're also required to work with IROC and the securities commissions, and the appropriate response is to halt the stock while we work through edits and what the announcement should look like. So I followed the appropriate protocols, and it's why the halt took place today. We got the announcement out and settled, and we expect the halt to be off pre-market before trading Wednesday morning, tomorrow morning.
Yeah, in about 9 hours and 10 minutes from now.
About 9 hours from now.
9 hours, 10 minutes from now. So let's go into some of the details here. What level, you bring up a great point, and people should be really aware of it. Getting to the table of a major brand is almost impossible, especially for a smaller company. Just getting to the table, sometimes you have to beat on a door literally for 2, 3, 4 years before someone will say, okay,
correct,
get in here.
Correct.
So the speed at which you got to the table is amazing. Talk to us about the level of scrutiny that Empire went through and Kai Saliva went through, because passing muster there speaks volumes about Empower and Kai Saliva, correct?
Well, and thank you for saying that. So yes, I mean, I can tell you, George, that weeks ago, we started conversations. In fact, I take that back. I mean, the initial conversations, now that I recall, started in the fourth quarter. And a number of weeks ago, the conversations escalated. And, very good dialogue. And again, we don't control the timing of what's going on with a big brand. What's on their agenda, what's working on behind the scenes with them. Absolutely. This is a very difficult, challenging time. Imagine an airline and what they're going through behind the scenes. So a number of weeks ago, as the meetings developed with their senior group, this followed with sending them samples of the fully developed Kai Saliva test kits to various key constituents, so they could look at it, feel it, test drive it, know exactly what was going on. Which was followed by the continued development of kaitest.com, providing samples of our marketing capability, our brochures, our design capability to support whatever might be required, such as building landing pages and providing information to travelers. A big brand needs to know that if we're going to be in front of their customers, we need to understand, we need to know their brand expectations. We need to be present at all times We need to build customer support mechanisms. They need to know that we have the fulfillment capabilities. They need to know that we have the inventory to supply. They need to know that we have the working capital to take care of their customers. And so all of that journey was easy for us to demonstrate, but it's our job to demonstrate and put our best foot forward. Now, we are grateful that we were able to demonstrate that, and that they had enough confidence to provide us with an agreement that we could work through together with them. And we expect traffic to be coming shortly. It'll take them a few days till, it might even be next week. I don't know the full answer on that until our links to kitest.com, kitest.ca will be available on their various properties, but that's what's going to happen.
But they're going to be moving fast.
Well, there's an urgency here. This is agreements behind us. We know exactly what we're supposed to do. We are set up right now to accept traffic. We have all Google Analytics behind the platforms and the landing pages to know that the traffic has come from the partner's site. And those are just kind of perfunctory IT mechanisms that you must have in place. And so we have all those things in place.
And it's going to be premature to ask, but again, just watching commentary online, I want to just throw this by you and see what light you can shed on it. It's going to be too early, but what kind of expectations do you have, even minimal expectation do you have for the amount of passengers that are in fact going to be referred to Kai?
Oh, I see. So, it's an open expectation right now. I think the challenge for the Canadian side, and I'll talk about the Canadian side versus the US side, because they could be distinctly different. As a Canadian, fellow Canadian, it's things are pretty locked down and tight right now. It's tough, for travel. It's tough for the airlines. I would certainly anticipate that it's not going to last that much longer, and it will start to open up. And we would expect that we will support, we will market to, we will support, the airlines on the campaign side to help drive traffic together, to help facilitate the requirements of travel. And the new requirements under the executive orders are, you must have your passport, you must have your boarding pass, but you also must have your negative COVID-19 test to fly across international borders. For Canadians who may go to the US, you also have to start to think about, I want to get back home. Now, getting back home means you also have to have a negative COVID test within 72 hours from an approved, licensed, CLIA certified laboratory like Kai Medical Laboratory to get back on that plane back home. What we recommend, what we're promoting is, buy the tests in advance with you, put them in your suitcase and have them ready. Set your alarm clock at 72 hours when the clock starts ticking, and go through the self-administered, process, and it'll get off to our lab prepaid, and you'll have your negative COVID test result with you to get back on board. Let me explain the US example briefly. The US example, which, and both are being marketed in the program, a Canadian version, a Canadian traveler's version, and a US traveler's version. The US traveler's version is, very available and active today at kitest.com. And it's not just about a Canadian traveler who might have to come back from the US to Canada. It's about any traveler in the US who needs to leave the United States, because there isn't really an international location that you can go to at the moment, leaving the US, without a negative COVID-19 test. So this now applies to a much broader audience than just, hey, a Canadian traveler coming to the US and trying to come back. That's not the case at all. It's much broader. If you're an AC or a WJ, you've got, many international markets that you can serve. In North America, we can handle Canadian, we can handle US, we can handle Caribbean countries, with the exception of Mexico that is blocked off at the moment. But we have quite a lot of reach and capability. And so I'm going to be curious to see, where that traffic comes from as we start to work with these big brands.
You mentioned earlier, a couple minutes ago, you said this situation isn't going to last much longer, and that more and more flights are going to open up and things are going to open. Is the timing of the tripling of Kai Lab almost perfect? Because if and when that opens up, but the requirement's still going to be there, I could see a flood of orders coming in. How key is it that you're in the middle of tripling the lab right now?
So coincidentally, perhaps, intentionally, perhaps, I do agree with you. I can tell you fundamentally, after the acquisition of Kai Labs, working through that due diligence, closing, working through the fourth quarter of 2020, getting to know Yoshi Tyler, our president of the lab, and their R&D capabilities going forward. And that's what created the Kai saliva test. In working with them closely in the fourth quarter, it was very evident to me that if we invest our working capital in R&D with Kai Medical Laboratory, they could bring it to market. And they did. And we provided them the capital, some of the branding capabilities. I've got a team of designers. I've got great PR folks, IR folks who really know how to put this stuff together. And frankly, I had to get out of the way and let these great talented people do their job, and they continue to do it. And so they're bringing this product to market, and it's enabling us now to go to brands of this caliber and say, here, this product is live and available. We have the e-commerce strategy to allow your, in this case, travelers. It could be patients, but in this particular, subset is travelers. Come on and land on our platform, purchase, we fulfill it. We can fulfill it in the United States. We can fulfill it in Canada. We have our bilingual Canadian packaging at the printers right now that will be available distinctly for Canadians in the not too distant future. That opens up all our pharmacy partners as well, because they want us to have bilingual packaging for Canada with the correct UPC codes. So to go back to your start of your question about the importance of the expansion of Kai Labs, it's very important. We're easily 50% of the way through the project. I am literally going to Dallas tomorrow. I'll spend the next 2 days there with the lab, with the construction crews, with the designers, with Yoshi Tyler and team, making sure that we're satisfied with how everything is progressing. And from a timing standpoint, call it luck, call it planning, market forces. Gosh, I don't even know if I can describe it all fully.
Serendipity.
Serendipity is to wrap it up. I believe that our investments were placed in the right place, in the right way, at the right time. I'm still very conservative, as you know. I'm very tight with our resources, but I know enough where to spend, where expansion makes sense, and this completely makes sense. And I can tell you, George, if we did not invest in Kai Medical Laboratory, in Yoshi Tyler and her team, in the Kai saliva test product and everything that it took to get it here, we absolutely would not be having this conversation today.
No, definitely not. And I would have to think that your intuition, look, a lot of people, when they ask me, hey, what do you think about Steve? I say, look, Steve has been trained not to play small ball. You don't think small ball. It's just not in your DNA. So when you started planning to double the size of the lab and then you extended that to triple the size of the lab,
Yeah.
I would have to think it just had to come from your intuition, both your pipeline and your intuition that we're going to need this because we're going to be more and more competitive, more and more demand. And if I'm not ready, then I'm gonna lose opportunity just because I won't have the capacity ready. So hats off to you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And you're exactly right. And it's kind of a combination of a number of factors. I will tell you this: if we didn't take these steps to figure out this expansion on the lab, and it's more than a lab, from an expansion standpoint, it's creating a much larger, a triple the size work environment for a whole host of team members that will make up the national brand of Kai Medical Laboratory and Kai Care, right? It's beyond the scope of Dallas, Texas, where that started. If we didn't seize that, if we didn't use our resources to capture it, and we stood still and did nothing, all of this would have passed us by. We literally would not have the scope capability to even be at the table on these conversations.
Yeah, you would have even stepped up because you would have embarrassed yourself. So let's talk about the brands that you're going to be ready for. And I want to just touch on two. There's airline brands and non-airline brands. I want to finish with the airline brands. You kind of touched on earlier, and I had the question right here. Airlines tend to work in groups and alliances. Does this open the door? That's a bullet point question, and you touched on it earlier. So how wide of a door have you just kicked open to be at the table? Doesn't guarantee you're going to get sales, but to be at the table now and talk to other groups and alliance members and say, they're doing it, we can do it for you.
It's very wide reaching. It goes beyond, an airline segment. That we've been working on hospitality. That ourselves and Loop Insight, Rob Anson, their CEO, and myself, we communicate so often on the various opportunities, and we try to co-create. We can't always control when one situation will work or another, but I can tell you that behind the scenes, we are working. Just today, there's been a huge amount of email traffic between our teams. Their CTO, my CTO, working on making sure the backend API between the Kai Medical Laboratory lab information system is reading or feeding correctly to the Loop AI digital wallet pass technology.
Right. That's powerful. That's
right?
Powerful.
Because if we have that together, it will open up bigger doors that we can bring a solution to. And I think what we're seeing in our markets is that the demand for these more sophisticated technology solutions are not slowing down. In fact, they're speeding up. We're so involved in commercial occupational health and occupational health care specifically, where the whole paradigm of that is now changing for companies and organizations, where they are going to need to have solutions for their employees. It's just becoming a requirement of corporations. So to your point, I guess we're continuing to gain more credibility, George, in the market. The more we have big conversations with big brands, the more big brands we have conversations with. And
it's kind of begets success.
Correct. And it's fair to say that as our resources develop, we sign bigger contracts, bigger deals. We have many more references to fall back on, And, I've been around the corporate world for a long time, going back to my GE days. And, when I was a business development person at GE Capital, and believe me, having the cachet of the GE brand going into opportunities, open doors much more easily than in other situations. So our developing corporation is becoming much more deserving of conversations at the big table with big brands.
So would it be safe to say, without, I know you can't make projections or, tell us, but would it be safe to say that there are many more brand discussions, both airline and non-airline brands that we'd recognize?
Yeah, there
You
absolutely
have
are.
been talking to, because people had maybe lost some faith again just because of a ticker symbol, a ticker price. Sorry, right? Some people might have lost some faith, but the fact of the matter is, this has been happening all along, and safe to say, those conversations, have you got some advanced conversations going on with some other big brands?
Well, yes, is a simple answer. We have never stopped having advanced conversations with our business development. Don't think for a second that team members at Kai Labs like Yoshi and her team aren't constantly working on opportunities, working to access all the tremendous funding that's coming from the Biden administration for states related to education, related to testing at borders, and the state of Texas is going to be the second largest beneficiary of funds based on population size in the United States. Don't think for a second that our talented Dr. Aviv and Dr. Jordan in the GTA aren't working tremendously hard on health care, medical clinic opportunities, business development opportunities at all times. Don't think for a second that I ever stop working on transactions and kind of driving the agenda. And we've got the good fortune of having more resources than we've had before. And we have talented team members who are really helping getting out in front of whether it's business development, whether it's shareholder interaction, whether it's marketing, building our brand. We have a whole entire new Kai Medical Laboratory website that's about to go live. That is just an elevated vision and version of the historical Kai Medical Laboratory. So we're doing all of those things. As I said in a previous interview, I've put funds forward to invest in the development of a telemedicine platform, while simultaneously looking at potential acquisitions that may be appropriate. But I've got a talented group, led by Joseph Cohen, to develop prototypes. And I'm going to be looking at, updates on that in the very near future. And we're going to see that our connection and really going to market with technology, healthcare technology, as I've talked about, is going to be at the forefront of what we do. So I think George, I think what I want everybody to understand is, please never think for a second that we're slowing down on any of our activity. Like we talked about in part one, stock price up or stock price down doesn't change the quality of the company and our path forward and our growth going forward. They're not completely directly connected. There's not a direct correlation. And I want everybody to have confidence that I am working as hard as I possibly can on these opportunities. And we're grateful to be able to announce today that, this contract got signed and we continue to move forward.
Yeah. And you're not just working as hard as you can, you're actually delivering. So just the last statement for me, for you to kind of finish that point off, which is, does a big win like this reinvigorate everybody on the shareholder side as to where you are going with Empower Clinics in the next 6, 12, 18, and 24 months? And as opposed to just looking to the day-to-day variations of what the capital markets are doing.
Well, I'm hopeful that that's what takes place. You know, we're people. You know, we're humans at the end of the day, and you know, perhaps we're emotional, sometimes maybe overly emotional and reactionary. And so we all like good news. So you know, I don't dismiss. I respect the concept of good news. You know, we can't. You know, we as an issuer, you know, cannot always have the most massive news, you know, 2 times per week, every week. In reality, it doesn't work that way. I hope that the fundamentals that I can communicate really become what you latch onto, so that irrespective of whether we have, you know, the best news ever in our history, or, you know, just sort of an update news or no news, confidence remains that the company's path is set. And we are here working on behalf of shareholders always. That I get, you know, unless, you know, my face is out there talking about it all the time. I get how, you know, markets, you know, fluctuate and all that sort of stuff. But I hope that there is a degree of calming of the nerves, to recognize that we are working on this stuff at all times. And we just don't always control the speed for the other party that we're working with to bring their pen to the table. But we're pretty good at it. And we got a lot of experience. I've got, you know, less experienced, younger team members, but I tell you what, they are motivated like you cannot believe. They drive me. They energize me because they're so engaged in the process. They're so engaged with our customers. I try to get out of their way and let them do their thing, delegate, and they keep bringing back the opportunities. And of course, I'm super engaged because, you know, I do love doing deals and you know, communicating with opportunities. And I will stay engaged, keep on doing it.
Well, tonight we celebrate this one. So congratulations to you and the team. All right. You actually delivered this one. And then tomorrow, we wish you well on your other conversations. At the top of this, you mentioned WJ
Yep.
and other ones. So we wish you well. But tonight we congratulate you and we thank you, Steve, for, you know, once again proving that Empower is not just talking the talk. You guys are walking the walk. Way to go.
Thank you, George. Hey, you know, always appreciate you working on our behalf, and thank you for this audience, and thank you to all our shareholders. I cannot tell the shareholders enough how important you are to us and to me. I do truly care.
That's evident, and you care enough to deliver, and you care enough to be here on Zoom at, you know, well into the night. When most people would say, "Hey, I'm done. I've had a long day. I've been up since 5:30 in the morning. I just had my dinner. I'm going to call it a day." But you didn't do that, and that's why you're a winner, and that's why we love having you on, Steve.
Thank you, George. Good night.
To everybody at home, you've been watching or you've been listening by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, or your favorite podcast platform. To Steve McAuley, he's CEO of Empower Clinics, trades on the CSC under CBDT. For our friends in the US, EPWCF, and for our friends in Europe, 8EC. It's up to you to do your due diligence, but more importantly, I rarely say this, this is now up to you, the massive, great, loyal shareholder base, to figure out what this means and whether this is just a one-off or if in fact it's what Steve has been telling you all along. The company's been talking with major brands all along, can't control the timing, and whether this is a one-off or you can expect more to come. I've got the confidence in Steve and his team. You got to decide that for you, but hopefully you've enjoyed this. And thanks for joining us on our first ever Midnight Beyond the Press Release. Have a great night. See you next time.